The man was nothing more than a shut-in gamer addicted to video games. Yet he unexpectedly transmigrated into the game world as a slave. Once as weak as a nobody, he now possessed base stats far beyond ordinary players, and had even acquired 13 hidden traits. 3 months earlier, his girlfriend of 5 years had broken up with him, and in a fit of anger, he quit his dead-end, soul-crushing job. From then on, he locked himself in his room, gaming non-stop, numbing himself with the false happiness of the virtual world. Pangenia was a virtual reality game that had exploded in popularity 5 years ago, and its very first official announcement promised this. Anyone who cleared the game could have one wish granted. At first, top players everywhere were eager to try it, wanting to see if the game's announcement was actually real. But 5 whole years passed without a single clear, and the player base kept shrinking, until in the end, Park Hyun-myung was the only one still playing. Online, the game was almost universally criticized, largely because its difficulty was simply absurd. The bosses were overwhelmingly powerful, suffocating to fight, and often made players question whether they were even beatable. On top of that, the game had no karma system or rule restrictions, meaning teammates would gladly turn on you for profit. Once a player was marked as wanted, even NPCs would join the hunt. If a player caught the attention of powerful NPCs, character deletion was practically unavoidable. What angered players the most, however, was that death wiped everything, gear, progress, all of it. And because the difficulty was so extreme, over time, everyone else gradually lost interest. Park Hyun-myung had played the game for a full 5 years, raising countless powerful characters. But now, even the one wielding the one-of-a-kind equipment from the Eight Swords continent had met its end. However, that character's death granted him 1.6 million soul points. Considering that since he started playing this game, he had only managed to gather 80,000 soul points, and now suddenly received 1.6 million. Yes, although this game completely wipes everything a character owns upon death, it also features a unique SP system, a system that converts the value of a dead character into points. Points that can be used to grant new characters various abilities and base stats. And the more soul points invested, the faster the character grows. His girlfriend's departure pushed the normally cautious Park Hyun-myung to take an all-or-nothing gamble. With each click of the mouse, the new character's stats and traits stacked higher and higher, until something called Hidden Fragment finally appeared. System message: congratulations, player. You have obtained an invitation to enter Pangenia. Suddenly, a powerful surge of energy erupted around Park Hyun-myung, and a voice abruptly echoed in his ears. Damn the gods. I will burn every world you have created. A sharp pain stabbed through him, leaving him unable to grasp what was happening. His head splitting with agony, his vision blurred, and within moments, he collapsed to the ground. At that instant, the computer on the desk burst into a blinding red glow, lines of text appearing on their own, brighter than light, darker than darkness. One who falls into the vortex of creation and destruction, may you find happiness within Pangenia. Whacked, a sharp crack echoed as the slave overseer's whip snapped Park Hyun-myung awake. Damn slave, get up. If you collapse again, I'll throw you to the Hydra Dragon. The name Hydra Dragon hit him like a shock, and the next moment, he saw endless yellow sand and a wasteland filled with slaves. His mind was instantly flooded with disbelief. Massive, towering hands, cold, heavy shackles locked around his wrists. When the overseer lashed his back again, "What are you mumbling to yourself for? Get back in line. If you don't want to die, get up now." Trembling, he forced himself to his feet and staggered into the crowd. And once his breathing finally steadied, he was certain of one thing. He had truly transmigrated into Pangenia, because the Hydra Dragon was one of its monsters. He then opened his status window, only to freeze when he saw the numbers staring back at him. Every single base stat had reached 12, and on top of that, he possessed all kinds of talents along with 13 hidden traits. Before he could look any deeper, a deep, rumbling roar shook the ground beneath their feet. Everyone turned in the same direction, stunned. In the distance, a massive black tide of troops was charging straight toward them, and someone in the crowd shouted, "It's the Desert Queen's army. They're breaking the non-aggression pact and launching an attack. Wake up, get ready to fight. If we keep standing around, we'll all die here." Park Hyun-myung stared at the woman standing atop a colossal beast, his heart pounding. It was the Snake Princess. At that very moment, the system panel flashed with a notification. Main quest issued. Rewards would be distributed in tiers based on performance. And failure meant death, both in the game and to his real-world body. At that moment, only one word remained in Park Hyun-myung's mind: survival. A rain of arrows poured down from the sky, striking both slaves and the overseers who controlled them alike. Under that barrage, everyone was pierced straight through. A splash of warm blood sprayed across Park Hyun-myung's cheek, and in the next instant, he activated his hidden trait, Heart of the Iron Blood Sovereign. This was a synergistic trait that could only emerge once all physical talents were fully maximized, allowing the user to remain perfectly calm, respond rationally to any situation, and rapidly adapt to the battlefield. Just as he bent down to pick up the long sword dropped by the overseer, a hostile soldier charged at him, raising his blade to cut Park Hyun-myung down, and without hesitation, he seized the sword from the ground. The moment his fingers closed around the hilt, the blade burst into brilliant light, and he swung the sword straight into the enemy's attack. With a sharp thud, the man's body was pierced clean through as the hidden trait, Weapon Master, activated. The collapsing figure immediately drew everyone else's attention. The bald man at the front tightened his grip on his spear and roared as he thrust forward, "Damn slave, go to hell." But the spear's razor-sharp tip was severed on the spot by Park Hyun-myung. Weapon Master meant absolute proficiency with all weapons, even ones he was holding for the very first time. Park Hyun-myung kicked the broken spearhead away, sending it flying straight through another man's abdomen. And that wasn't the limit of the trait. No matter the weapon, he could instantly read its trajectory, targeting his opponent's weakness. He blocked the heavy downward strike of an axe head-on. Then, seizing the opening, he drove his sword forward in a single, precise thrust. As the blade pierced into the enemy's chest, he snatched up the fallen axe and brought it crashing down toward the enemy's head. He was clearly just a slave, yet far stronger than he had any right to be, leaving the others around him too intimidated to take another step forward. System message: due to the technique effects of a hidden trait, weapon proficiency is rapidly increasing. Sword proficiency has reached LV6, spear proficiency has reached LV6, and axe proficiency has reached LV6. In-game, the maximum proficiency cap is level 10, yet he had already jumped straight to level 6. This was the true power of hidden traits. Without them, someone at his current level would have been dead long ago. Even so, he was now facing a force of at least 500 soldiers. Was that really something a single person could handle? The Snake Princess gazed at the rolling yellow sands in the distance, lost in memory. Inside the Grand Hall, the Desert Queen sat upon her throne. The Queen looked at her and spoke slowly. "The expedition of the magic ring failed. Is that true, Snake Princess?" After the Snake Princess calmly acknowledged it, the Queen continued, "If the fools of the Central Continent learn that our desert city, Sarner, did not take part in this expedition, they will pin all the blame on us. That we cannot allow that to happen. You are to go to the Carlsman Desert immediately and slaughter every surviving soldier of the expeditionary force. Eliminate anyone who knows that Sarner sent no troops, and erase everything connected to it. Complete this task successfully, and I will lift your curse. This is your final chance. Do not disappoint me again." The scene shifted back to the present. The Snake Princess questioned the soldier beneath her. "Is it finished?" The man trembled as he replied, "There's still one slave putting up fierce resistance." A slave? That alone sparked her curiosity. Wreckage, severed arms, and lifeless hands littered the ground, forming what looked like an invisible boundary around Park Hyun-myung. By now, his stamina was nearly exhausted, sweat pouring down his body. But a system notification followed. Level increased to LV8. Stamina, mana, and fatigue rapidly recovering. Just as everyone hesitated to move forward, a sharp voice rang out from behind. All of you, step aside. The one who arrived was none other than the Snake Princess herself, standing atop the colossal beast skull. Park Hyunmyeong seemed to have expected her arrival all along. Isabella von Zishian. Because of the overwhelming level gap, all Park Hyunmyeong could see through the status window were her abnormal state and level 8. A level he had absolutely no chance of defeating right now. In Pangea, the maximum level is level 10, and the true dividing line among the strong begins at level 7. From level 7 onward, one's real power expands exponentially, making the gap between levels nearly impossible to overcome. A level 8 powerhouse is considered top tier no matter where they are. Simply put, this is a realm only the leaders of major, well-known organizations can reach. For Park Hyunmyeong to face someone like that right now would be nothing short of a world-ending catastrophe. Yet the abnormal status displayed on the Snake Princess's status panel sparked a sudden realization in him. I could see that moment. Her slender figure leapt down from the beast's skull. Those skills you showed just now were quite interesting, she said coldly, but now you can die. As a level 8 warrior closed in, not a trace of panic appeared on Park Hyunmyeong's face. Just as the blade was about to pierce his chest, he curled his lips into a smile and said, "Don't you want to break the queen's curse?" The overwhelming force behind the dagger came to an abrupt halt. Its tip stopped mere inches from Park Hyunmyeong's throat. Isabella withdrew the blade reluctantly, glaring as she demanded, "Who are you, really?" Park Hyunmyeong met her gaze and replied calmly, "One who gazes upon the stars and guides them. I will help you lift the queen's curse and leave this desert behind." Those words struck straight at her heart. Seeing the look on Isabella's face, Park Hyunmyeong knew he had succeeded. After a Starcarver player passes the breakthrough window, reaching the realm of a transcender requires his assistance. Although Park Hyunmyeong was not a true Starcarver, breaking the queen's curse still required a Starcarver's blessing of the stars. For Isabella, who cherished freedom above all else, the chance to lift the curse as soon as possible was irresistibly tempting. As for how Park Hyunmyeong knew she was so desperate to escape the curse, the reason was simple. Isabella was a character he himself had created back when he played the game. She was a tragic character, abandoned after he botched her stat allocation during the early exit phase. The Queen's Curse was a game mechanic designed to prevent players from leaving the starting area too early. Characters were created to clear the game. They were existences destined to reach an ending. And because of that, she had been trapped here by the Queen's Curse. Isabella asked for his name. With a resolute expression, Park Hyunmyeong spoke a single name, Randolph. System message, player name has been set. The two of them fell silent for a moment. Isabella was the first to break the tension. "I'll spare your life, for now. But if I ever find out that you lied to me, I'll carve you into pieces bit by bit." She then turned to her soldiers and ordered, "Take good care of him. He is my honored guest, and he is to be treated with the utmost courtesy." System message, main quest, survival, completed. Calculating results. Congratulations, you have achieved the most perfect rating in history. The constellation of beginner's luck smiled as the rewards were upgraded. The constellation of battle scratched its nose and commented, "Quite impressive." Once the rewards were finalized, Randolph finally collapsed. As night slowly fell, Randolph lay in the bath, examining the rewards he had obtained from completing the quest. He never expected to receive, all at once, an item that had appeared only once in the game's 5-year history, Hydra Dragon Soul, along with an early game essential, Michaela's Memory. However, the final item, a fragment known as the Broken Golden Rule, left him puzzled. And why did the system interface indicate that reality was overlapping with the forward expedition map? At that moment, 3 beautiful young women entered, towels in their arms. Smiling, They said they were there to help Park Hyun-myung wash and refresh himself. Park Hyun-myung hadn't expected the test to come so quickly. These women were all Isabella's subordinates. Any sign of reaction, no matter how small, would immediately arouse suspicion. Because a star carver does not respond to desire, he had to remain calm, and then even calmer. What happened next made him jolt in shock. How was that possible? Gracia and Burko Chalik. Those two were players who had once explored Pangenia alongside him. He had assumed their sudden disappearance meant they had simply quit the game, but now, had they also transmigrated into it, just like him? And on top of that, he saw a log-out option. Did that mean leaving was actually possible? Randolph waved his hand, signaling the three girls to step outside first. He claimed that he needed to commune with the stars. Failing to do so within the designated time would cause him to lose the power of a star carver. That explanation immediately shut the girls up. Before they left, Randolph added that he would go see Isabella once the communion was complete. Even he hadn't expected such a flimsy excuse to actually work. He had thought he would be trapped in the game forever, yet logging out was possible. The instant his finger tapped the log out button, a system message appeared. Logging out. Please place your character in a safe location. After completing his first main quest, Randolph chose to exit the game and return to reality. What greeted him was the same familiar room and the same cheap clothes. Everything was exactly as before. Park Hyun-myung rubbed his eyes, wondering if all of this was just a hallucination caused by excessive gaming that moment. His gaze fell on the desk, where a golden, circular fragment lay quietly in place. He reached out and grabbed the fragment, his mind flooded with questions. Why was this thing in his room? Did that mean everything from before was real? He quickly stuffed it into his pocket and rushed to his computer to search for the game, only to find that there was no trace of it anywhere. Pangenia's official website had vanished as if it had never existed at all. At that moment, terrified screams suddenly erupted from outside the window. A gigantic mantis was rampaging through the street, swinging its razor-sharp scythes wildly. The police's firearms were completely ineffective against it. They called for backup over the radio while desperately trying to stop the monstrous mantis from advancing. The sight made Park Hyun-myung tremble. How had things come to this? Why were monsters from the game world appearing in reality? As panic set in, the broken golden rule fragment he had just put in his pocket suddenly slipped out and fell to the floor. With cries for help and a girl's sobbing echoing from outside, he found himself unable to decide what to do. At that moment, his fingers brushed against the fragment, and a sudden realization struck him. If monsters from the game could appear in the real world, then could the items he obtained in the game also be used in reality? The instant he opened his pouch, Michaela's accessory and the Hydra Dragon's soul materialized in midair. The sight made Park Hyun-myung suck in a sharp breath. He reached out and grasped the Hydra Dragon's soul, but nothing happened. Then he remembered. The broken golden rule fragment could synchronize reality with Pangenia itself. The moment he picked up the circular fragment, a goddess clad in a flowing white dress appeared behind him. System message. Synchronizing player with character. Synchronization complete. Broken golden rule fragment remaining time. 24 hours of BY now. The streets were already littered with corpses. A mother ran desperately, clutching her child in her arms, when massive stones suddenly began to fall from the sky. In that split second, she hurled her child forward with all her strength, while she herself was crushed beneath the crashing boulders. The scene also caught the attention of a woman nearby. She rushed over, urgently asking whether the mother was all right. The mother struggled to reply that she was fine and begged her to take the child away first. After weighing her options, the woman finally bowed her head in apology. "I'm sorry, I'll make sure the child is safe." But in the very next instant, she sensed something was wrong. Turning her head, she discovered the giant mantis standing right beside her. Staring at the grotesque maw lunging toward her, despair filled her heart. Was this really how she was going to die? Suddenly, a figure flashed past, sword in hand, severing the mantis beast's head in a single strike. Blue light flared from Randolph's eyes. and the monstrous creature was torn apart, shattered into chunks like crumbling black tofu. The woman opened her eyes in disbelief. She was alive. But who was this man standing before her? At that moment, another mantis beast charged straight at Randolph. Seeing him remain motionless, the girl screamed a warning for him to be careful. A deep roar echoed from behind. A massive dragon's head lunged out and clamped its jaws around the mantis's body. The woman's body went rigid in shock, followed by a wave of confusion. What kind of creature was this? At that moment, a complete dragon's head manifested behind Randolph. He stepped onto one of the dragon heads, standing high above the battlefield. The woman stared at the scene in utter disbelief. It felt like watching a 3D movie, making her wonder if she was dreaming. Suddenly, the girl in her arms broke free and ran toward her mother. With someone holding back the monster's head on, the surrounding crowd stopped fleeing and began moving in to help rescue the trapped woman. Randolph swung his sword again and again, each strike unleashing a storm of blood and violence. The giant mantis collapsed helplessly, its body torn to pieces by the nine-headed dragon. In truth, this monster invasion wasn't limited to Huaxiao alone. Across the entire world, monsters began to appear one after another. They rampaged through human civilization, slaughtering innocent civilians. Yet alongside the monsters, armored warriors wielding blades and swords also entered humanity's field of vision. These warriors possessed power far beyond ordinary humans, easily slaying creatures immune to bullets and steel, heralding the arrival of a new era. Somewhere inside a high-rise building, a man stared at the news on his phone, reports about monster invasions and the sudden appearance of warriors. He muttered under his breath, "What a bunch of idiots wasting broken Golden Rule fragments like that." He was one of Pangenia's top-tier players, known by the character ID Butcher. If Pangenia were to fully merge with reality one day, then everyone would become a competitor, and those who possessed more Golden Rule fragments would naturally rise as the protagonists of this era. Recently, however, something had caught his attention. The rankings, unchanged for 2 whole years, had suddenly updated. And with an absurd score of 220 points, someone had taken first place. Randolph? Could that guy be the ghost? The so-called ghost, sometimes referred to as a phantom, had no known real identity. According to rumors, he owned hundreds of game characters and once formed a Demon Realm expedition team entirely made up of NPCs, becoming the first player who nearly cleared the game. Though the expedition ultimately failed for unknown reasons, he was still widely acknowledged as the strongest player in the industry. It was said that when a top-tier character dies, they are summoned once again at the very moment that expedition failed. He must have been summoned into Pangenia. Although entering Pangenia alters one's appearance and resets all equipment, the talents of previous characters can still be inherited. Anyone capable of reaching such heights could only be one person, the ghost. Meanwhile, Randolph fell into deep thought. The monsters appearing in reality, and the players who had been summoned, were all identical to what existed within Pangenia. This chain of events suddenly made everything click. Back when he used his strongest character, he had nearly cleared the Ring expedition. Because from a certain point onward, Pangenia's difficulty had spiraled out of control, that NPCs that were once friendly suddenly turned hostile, drawing their blades against him. They even sabotaged his progress in ways completely beyond his expectations. If all of that was caused by players who had been summoned just like him, then someone was clearly targeting him. Now that the boundary between reality and Pangenia was fading, he could no longer hide behind logging out. To protect both worlds, he had to grow stronger and fast. Isabella looked at Randolph as he entered and asked, "Are you done communing with the stars?" Randolph replied, "I came here to honor our agreement. But I have one condition," he added. "Isabella, take me to the sanctuary." Isabella cried out in disbelief, questioning whether he had lost his mind. Yet Randolph understood this clearly. If the first main quest was survival, then the second had to be obtaining a class, and he had to go there because that was where the stars awaited. Beneath the moonlight, Randolph stood beside Isabella, the shadows of shattered remains lingering behind her. She casually wiped the blood from her dagger. Watching this, Randolph couldn't help but feel relieved, dispatching the guards in just a few minutes. Having an ally like her was truly reassuring. In truth, all of this had happened only a few hours earlier. When Randolph first said those words to Isabella, she had immediately accused him of being insane. Yet he told her that the stars were right there, merely hidden away, and that once he found that star, he could lift her curse. Isabella urgently replied that the sanctuary was not a place just anyone could enter. But Randolph told her plainly that this was her last chance, leaving her no choice but to stop arguing. Soon after, the two of them descended a staircase leading underground. System message: you have entered the hidden map, Desert Sanctuary. Rewards will be granted based on exploration progress. Warning: your current level does not meet the recommended level 8 for the sanctuary. Warning: the sanctuary is filled with poison and demonic energy. Entry is not advised without sufficient magic resistance. Hidden trait: Giant's magic resistance. Activated. You are immune to poison and demonic corruption. Main quest 2 issued. Obtain a class. You may acquire a class within the sanctuary. Rewards will be distributed according to class rank. A faint smile tugged at Randolph's lips. This place could grant him the class he was seeking. Standing before them now was a bottomless abyss, plunging thousands of meters into darkness. Isabella stared at the scene in silence. She closed her eyes and pondered for a moment. She was about to say that the Star Carver had taken the wrong path and turn away, when Randolph stopped her. She spoke up. That bridge ahead is a trap. Step onto it, and you'll be swept away by violent air currents. Don't tell me you can't see something that obvious. Randolph calmly rejected her warning. Or are you just scared? Isabella bristled with irritation, but only replied coldly that she had twisted her ankle. Hearing that, Randolph immediately crouched down. Then it can't be helped that I'll carry you. Her face flushed as she tried to refuse. But Randolph cut her off. There's no time, but if the Queen finds out, those dead soldiers will definitely be followed by pursuers sent after you. After weighing the pros and cons, she finally climbed onto Randolph's back. She made it clear that if she weren't completely out of options, she would never have allowed him to carry her. But the very next moment, the direction Randolph chose was nothing like what she had expected. That made Isabella cry out, asking if he had taken the wrong path. Without hesitation, Randolph leapt straight toward the bottomless abyss, activating a rare trait, sudden insight, an ability that allowed its user to perceive what ordinary people could not. Seeing how familiar Randolph was with the terrain, how easily he avoided traps and pinpointed hidden routes, Isabella's confusion only deepened. How could he know all this? Even she, the second in command of Paisamo, had never been aware of such details. At that moment, Randolph suddenly spoke. Didn't expect the second in command of Paisamo to be this tall. The comment sent a strange jolt through Isabella. It felt as though they had known each other for a very long time. Have we met before? She asked. Isabella voiced the question, and Randolph answered calmly. No, we've never met in the same space. That reply only confused her further, and she pressed him to explain what he meant. He continued, in other words, I can see you, but you can't see me. In the next instant, the two of them appeared inside a garden. If he remembered correctly, this should be the moment when, rumble, the small hills around them began to shake violently, as if something were about to burst out of the ground. In the next moment, 3 massive golems emerged from the earth. The runes carved into their chests shone with a blinding light. Looking at these high-tier golems, Randolph knew all too well that at his current level, even a single hit would mean instant death. Just as the golems charged straight toward them, Isabella placed her hands calmly behind her waist, a faint smile on her face. In a single heartbeat, countless flames engulfed the golem's stone bodies, and they detonated with a deafening explosion. Isabella turned her head slightly and spoke softly, "This will be over soon." She leapt swiftly, using the falling debris from the sky as footholds, her small figure piercing through the massive golems again and again. Watching this, Randolph nodded in satisfaction that, this is the legendary auto combat? Isabella needed no commands from Park Hyun-myung at all to deal with the golems effortlessly. Enemies that were still difficult for him were completely helpless before her. After all the golems were destroyed, a system window appeared before Randolph, informing him that a class was now available. Golem Creator, a rare class capable of summoning constructs to fight alongside the player. However, it wasn't the class Randolph was seeking, so he rejected it without hesitation, because the one who could grant him the class he wanted was someone else entirely. At that moment, black miasma suddenly spread through the air, and a far more massive presence began to loom over the area. System alert. The mountain's master who guards a nameless star, ancient King Drameth, has grown in rage at the intruders. So you finally arrived, Randolph murmured, as if he had anticipated this all along. The colossal god who guards the star, Drameth. System warning. Player level is far below the recommended threshold for this area. This pressure felt completely different from anything the game had shown before. Just as Isabella assumed Randolph would ask her to deal with the creature, he calmly reassured her, "Don't worry, he may look terrifying, but he's actually quite gentle." Before his words could even settle, the ancient king suddenly charged at Isabella. Caught completely off guard by the unexpected strike, Isabella was knocked straight onto the ground. Randolph felt a brief moment of awkwardness. Something felt off. He clearly remembered that the one who guided him before had been rather gentle. At that moment, the ancient king spoke. "Challenger of the Sanctum, defeat me now and prove your worth." Before the echo faded, its massive tail lashed out toward Isabella once again. "Those who fail to prove their worth shall sleep here forever." Randolph distinctly remembered that nothing like this had happened when he cleared the area before. Had something changed? Suddenly, Randolph realized something. Ancient King Drameth, the guardian of the star, possessed a massive stone body and gained intelligence only after being influenced by the star itself. And when he had cleared this place before, he had done so as William, a level 10 5-star transcender. He remembered it clearly. When William entered the sanctum, Drameth had been gentle, even guiding him directly to the star. Perhaps that was why William had already met the qualification Drameth recognized. Simply put, Drameth only attacked those weaker than itself, and back then, William was undeniably stronger. With a crushing stomp of its serpentine tail, Isabella was sent flying and slammed hard into the ground. The poisonous miasma of the sanctum made it impossible for her to control her body properly. Perhaps this had been a mistake from the very beginning. She had been deceived by that star carver and rushed in blindly. At that critical moment, Randolph shouted, "Stop, Drameth!" The ancient king's colossal body jolted and froze midair. Its serpentine head slowly turned toward Randolph. "Why do you know my true name?" Without hesitation, Randolph replied, "It's me, your master. William has returned." With just a few calm words, the man made ancient King Drameth freeze in place. After all, this was the guardian of the star, a colossal beast in its true form. Randolph could do this only because he had once entered this place many times with his strongest character. Back then, Drameth had been gentle toward the seven sages, even guiding him directly to the star. But now, with Randolph's strength so diminished that respect was gone, replaced by pure contempt. "You claim to be William?" The serpent roared with laughter. "Pathetic human. Do you even understand what you're saying? William was a being of true power, one worthy of being served as my master. Even if he failed during the Demon Realm expedition, he is still far beyond a weak creature like you." The terrifying maw lunged straight toward Randolph. Yet he remained calm and spoke, "Honor our contract." Drameth froze instantly, its jaws stopping midair. "Insignificant human. How do you know of the contract's existence?" That contract should have been known to no one. Drameth's true name, as well as the contract bound to it, were absolute secrets, known to almost no one. However, that contract bound only the William of the past. Randolph was no longer affected by it. The massive serpent spoke in a deep voice, demanding to know who he truly was. Randolph no longer expected it to believe that he was William. If you want to know who I am, he said calmly, then take me to the star. The star itself will prove it. Dramatha's eyes were still filled with disdain. You? You don't even have the right to approach the star. Even knowing how weak he currently was, Randolph replied with unwavering resolve. Or are you afraid the star might acknowledge me and prove that I am your master? Faced with such arrogance, Dramath let out a cold laugh. Ridiculous that I could swallow you whole in a single bite. Still, I can take you to the star. I don't believe you're William, but letting someone who knows of the contract live makes me uneasy. Let the star deal with you. Not long after, Isabella stared at the scene before her in shock. The star. It's here? Randolph nodded with certainty. Yes, what rests upon the altar is the star. More precisely, the head of Rhea. On the Panga continent, the term star refers to the fragmented remains of Rhea, the twin goddess. There are 32 fragments scattered across the land, regarded by players as the foundation for reaching transcendence. The star remained in Randolph's hand for less than a moment, before erupting into blazing flames that completely engulfed him. Isabella was startled by the scene before her and half-shouted, asking if Randolph was all right. Dramath watched with mockery in his eyes. I told you long ago, someone like you would be burned alive the moment you touched the star. What he didn't realize was that Randolph heard every word clearly from within the flames. Damn bastard. In truth, there was only one situation where the star would instantly kill a player, when someone exploited a bug to bypass Dramath and seize it directly. Randolph hadn't bypassed anything. The real question now was whether he could obtain the class he truly wanted. In theory, touching the star without an existing class could trigger an awakening. But this was something he had only heard about, never experienced himself. At that moment, Randolph seemed to hear a vast, ancient voice. Void dexterity, omni-mastery, giant's anti-magic resistance, druidic nature affinity, weapon master, bottomless appetite, heart of the iron blood sovereign, blessing of the golden emperor, the dominator, mutation, grand sage's destiny. As the voice faded, the skull dissolved into pure energy and merged with Randolph's system. System notification, mana converted into Stellaris, active skill acquired. Star Scorch LV.1 passive skill acquired. Star's Blessing LV.1. Stellar bonus granted. All attributes +5. The more stars a successor possesses, the stronger they become. Stellar bonuses are permanent class acquired. Star Heir. From afar, Isabella was left utterly stunned by what she had just witnessed. At that moment, Randolph spoke calmly. Isabella, if your curse were lifted, what would you want to do? Isabella blushed slightly and spoke her wish in a soft voice, to leave the desert and search for the current state of her family. Randolph replied calmly, I will grant you the blessing of the stars and allow you to leave this desert. However, I have one condition. You will work for me for 1 year. After that, I will give you your freedom and help you find your family. His words reminded her of the queen she once served. As her thoughts wavered, Randolph gently placed a hand on her shoulder. I am not a queen, and I won't deceive you. That strange sense of familiarity rose to her cheeks once more. She clenched her teeth, as if making a final decision. I will follow you. Isabella lowered herself to one knee before Randolph. He nodded, clearly satisfied that that's a wise choice. Then he turned to Dramath. You said it yourself. Whoever owns the star is your master, correct? The ancient king, once proud and unyielding, now trembled as he responded in a low voice. System notification. Main quest 2 completed. Profession acquired. Total score 230. System notification. Player name has been recorded in the Hall of Renown. Fortune constellations favor you more strongly. Quest rewards significantly increased. Several constellations from the 100-star Hall are now watching you. Meanwhile, in a cafe in the real world, 2 men who looked exactly alike sipped their coffee. Speaking quietly, that Randolph, he has to be Ghost. The first quest could still be luck, but the second, no way. 5 years, Ghost has finally appeared. This is going to be interesting. Can we find him first? The woman shrugged. How? We've searched for him for years and still found nothing. One of the twins spoke up. That's because he wasn't a truly transported player back then. But now it's different that he's inside the game for real that we'll find him. Maybe it's time to fish. The secret auction house should be open by now. Fishing is player slang. It means placing high-stat gear in the secret auction house, then using twin runes to track whoever buys it. Some clueless newcomers grab the cheap gear and soon find themselves being followed or outright killed. That's because anyone who wants first place in the third main quest needs powerful equipment. But Ghost is basically an encyclopedia of the game, that he knows exactly what twin runes do. He won't fall for it so easily. The woman shook her head. If it's Ghost, he might walk straight into the trap on purpose. The expedition failed, sure, but his execution was flawless. He's no ordinary man. He might even buy the gear after realizing it's bait, kill everyone who comes after him one by one. That's the Ghost I know. Then we'll bring him to our guild. No, invite him. In a dark corner, a system window quietly appeared. System notice, main quest 2. Obtain a class has been finalized. You failed to secure a top ranking, lost the special reward, and no longer have access to the secret auction house. Butcher frowned as he stared at the sudden notification. Randolph, 230 points, he muttered. What kind of class gives a score like that? Still, it doesn't matter, he said calmly. Rankings can change. All I have to do is kill anyone on the leaderboard, and I'm back in. System notice, side quest sanctuary exploration completed. Rewards are being distributed. At the same time, Randolph rode atop the ancient King Drachmet, moving at incredible speed while receiving his rewards. The operation had gone far more smoothly than expected. Escape and exploration, both accomplished. Suddenly, Drachmet's serpentine eyes narrowed as he sensed multiple presences approaching fast. Master, Drachmet warned, the intruders have entered the sanctuary. Isabella immediately realized they must be the Queen's pursuing troops. She turned to Randolph. The Queen herself may not appear, but her guards are numerous. Even with a guardian, we won't be able to hold them off for long. Randolph spoke calmly. Why would we stay and fight alongside the guardian? That single sentence snapped Isabella out of it. She instantly understood his intent. The next moment, they activated the shadow cloaks they had obtained as rewards and vanished from sight. Drachmet was left behind, standing there in complete confusion. After putting some distance between them, Isabella asked nervously, "So we're really just running? Is that safe?" Randolph explained, "Didn't you say the Queen isn't inside the sanctuary? That means we're fine. The pursuers can't all enter. At most, it'll be the vanguard. If we get pinned down here and the main force arrives, we'll be completely trapped. No matter what, they'll prioritize chasing me. So the smartest move is to leave the safe zone immediately. To truly escape, we have to use the teleport gate at the edge of the desert. Your curse is gone, but activating the gate still takes time." Isabella stared at the massive stone gate ahead of them in shock. So, this is the way out? Randolph answered with certainty. Yes, once we pass through here, we'll be able to leave the desert. But it'll take some time. Activating the portal takes about half a day. As you can see, there's nowhere to hide. Even though the vanguard has already entered the sanctuary, it's only a matter of time before they find us. He understood how critical this place was, but with no way of knowing what was happening in the real world, he had no choice but to log out temporarily. So he told Isabella that he needed to communicate with the stars during that time. Without hesitation, Isabella gripped the dagger at her waist. "Leave this place to me, that I'll protect you." He never could have imagined that. Once the game and reality began to merge, he would end up becoming one of the strongest players at the forefront. That reality also stirred memories for his ex-girlfriend, the one who had dumped him and kept him as a backup. To her, Park Hyun-myung might have been useless and spineless, but at least his academic background wasn't embarrassing. So when Zhu Ruian felt suffocated by her new boyfriend, an absolute pig of a man, she found herself thinking of the backup she had once discarded, Park Hyun-myung. Park Hyunmong looked at her in confusion. You suddenly asked me out. What's this about? Seeing this, Zhu Ruian quickly told him not to rush and asked him to sit down first. Maybe because it had been so long, she suddenly realized that Park Hyunmyong's entire presence had changed. Park Hyunmyong, however, showed no courtesy and told her to get straight to the point. Zhu Ruian pressed her lips together, speaking in a tone that felt all too familiar. Your vibe has changed, but this part of you is still the same. Back then, whenever I called you, you'd come running right away. You still do, that's actually why I liked you. It wasn't until after we broke up that I realized how good you really were. I've been missing you a lot lately. How have you been, big brother? Did you ever miss me? Park Hyunmyong stayed silent for a moment, then stood up. If that's everything you wanted to say, I'll be leaving now. Seeing him about to go, Zhu Ruian panicked. Wait, didn't you hear me just now? I said I missed you. Are you still angry about what I said when we broke up? Park Hyunmyong turned back, his voice flat. Zhu Ruian, does your boyfriend know you came to see me today? You're good at deleting contacts. Next time, try clearing the relationship too. As soon as the words left his mouth, he turned around and walked away without hesitation. If this were the old Park Hyunmyong, he wouldn't have dared to say a single harsh word. Yet now he felt strangely calm. Perhaps Randolph's mindset was beginning to influence him. Just then, a woman's scream caught his attention. Stop following me. I'm calling the police. The next second, the man grabbed her by the hair and pulled out a box cutter from his pocket. What are you staring at? Never seen a fight before? That Rolex is mine. Hand it over or I'll kill you. Right as the blade was about to come down, Park Hyunmyong grabbed the man's wrist mid-swing. The woman, who had already resigned herself to death, cracked one eye open in shock. Park Hyunmong tightened his grip and said coldly, don't push it. The sheer force made the man scream in agony. Even without using the golden fragment, Park Hyunmyong could clearly feel it. His current strength was more than enough to crush the man's wrist. He then flung the attacker aside and turned to ask if the woman was hurt. Having narrowly escaped death, she didn't know how to thank him. As Park Hyunmyong looked at her face, realization struck. She was the same woman he had saved the last time he used the golden fragment. And oh wonder she had seemed familiar. At that moment, the man who had been lying on the ground somehow struggled back to his feet. He grabbed the box cutter that had fallen earlier and lunged straight at Park Hyunmyong. As if he had anticipated it, Park Hyunmyong sidestepped the attack with ease. He immediately followed up with a sharp strike from his right hand, knocking the man unconscious on the spot. Moments later, the police arrived and loaded the attacker into a patrol car. After a brief assessment of the situation, they stated that both the attacker and Park Hyunmyong would need to be taken back to the station for questioning. At that point, Jean Hannah stepped forward to vouch for Park Hyunmyong, but the officers still insisted on bringing him in for a formal statement. Although Park Hyunmyong didn't want to waste time, he understood that the police were simply doing their job. Jean Hannah then took out her press badge and handed it to the officers that I'm a television reporter. Jean Hannah, please don't harass an innocent person. Could you speak with me and the involved party first? The two officers froze when they heard the words television reporter. If this incident made the news, it would be a serious headache. At that moment, people around them began whispering, isn't she the woman who saved a child from a monster on Weibo a while back? I think she was even on TV. Jean Hannah. Yeah, that matches that IT has to be her. The two officers clearly realized this as well. Offending Jean Hannah would only make things worse, so they stopped pressing the matter. Before leaving, Jean Hannah expressed her thanks to Park Hyunmyong. She then handed him a business card, and I'm a reporter who specializes in dimensional warriors. The phrase caught Park Hyunmyong off guard. Seeing his confusion, she explained, dimensional warriors are what people call those unidentified individuals who appeared during the monster invasion and defeated the monsters. That made things click for Park Hyunmyong. Compared to the idea of reality merging with a game, dimensional invasion sounded far more believable to the public. Jean Hannah then asked Park Hyunmyong for a business card. Just as she said that, Zhu Ruian suddenly clung tightly to his arm, trying to claim she was his girlfriend. Park Hyunmyong pushed her away without hesitation. He then turned back to Jean Hanna and said calmly, I don't have a business card. After getting his phone number instead, Jean Hanna smiled. If you're free someday, let's grab a coffee or a meal. Sure, Park Hyun-myong replied, that it's on me. Zhu Ruian, standing off to the side, grew visibly furious when she realized the two of them were completely ignoring her. Not long after Jean Hanna left, her phone rang. On the other end was her direct superior, informing her that a major interview assignment had just come in and that Jean Hanna had been personally selected for it. This left her confused. Why send her to interview the man who had saved the United States? The hero now known worldwide as Glacia? Even her boss didn't seem to know the full reason, only saying that the hero himself had requested to meet Jean Hanna, and that he would be coming in person. Meanwhile, inside the game, the ground before Randolph was littered with wreckage. All of it belonged to the pursuing forces sent by Piissimo. However, the battle had nearly drained Isabella of all her stamina. She clearly couldn't hold out much longer. Seeing this, the man leading the group spoke up. As long as the Snake Princess hands over the slave behind her and returns to the Queen's side, Her Majesty will consider this matter settled. Isabella showed no sign of retreat. Even under immense pressure, she stood firmly in front of Randolph without hesitation. Seeing this, the pursuers from Piissimo stopped wasting words and charged forward, clearly intending to kill both of them at once. At that critical moment, the stone gate suddenly flared to life, erupting with a blinding blue glow. The teleportation gate had been activated. At the same time, Randolph appeared right beside Isabella. "Thank you, Isabella," he said quietly. Completely exhausted, Isabella asked if he had finished communicating with the stars. Park Hyun-myong nodded. Randolph then extended his hand, his voice calm, yet resolute. "You honored your promise to protect me. Now it's my turn to honor ours." As he clenched his fist, countless streaks of starlight burst forth from his hand. System notification. Player has activated the Star Air exclusive skill Star Trace. All-star power consumed. Duration, 41 seconds. The soldiers were instantly suppressed by the overwhelming power of starlight. And when that power reached its peak, their bodies gradually crumbled into ash. Only then did Isabella truly grasp the terrifying strength of Star Air. She looked toward the teleportation array, her eyes filled with excitement and anticipation. Randolph turned back to her and asked calmly, "If you want to back out now, there's still time." Isabella pressed her lips together and smiled, then followed Randolph without hesitation as he stepped into the teleportation gate. Moments later, he brought her into their destination, the newly unlocked Golden City, Arcana. It was a city where material wealth decided everything. Here, if you didn't possess assets worth hundreds of millions, then no matter how beautiful you were still just another pretty face. As Isabella stared at the overwhelmingly lavish city in shock, Randolph reminded her, "This place is called the Golden City. Even basic daily necessities must be purchased with gold." Hearing that, Isabella took out a cloth pouch and said, "If it's just gold, then we don't need to worry that I brought 300 gold coins." Seeing her confidence, Randolph bluntly shattered it. "With that amount, we can probably afford food and lodging for one night." Isabella looked at him in disbelief. Back in the desert, 300 gold coins were enough to buy 10 slaves. But Randolph told her that the Carlsman Desert barely even qualified as a backwater here. That left Isabella genuinely confused. "Then, what do we do now?" Randolph pointed at a building nearby and said casually, "Why are you worrying about that? Isn't there an ATM right over there?" Isabella followed the direction of his thumb, only to realize it was a massive casino. She froze on the spot. Randolph, on the other hand, looked completely confident. "Relaxed, I've always been pretty lucky." Indeed, in the Golden City, there was only one rule. Money decided everything. And the place where all the city's wealth ultimately converged was the infamous Hudson Casino. At that moment, right in front of the casino entrance, a man said bluntly to the two of them, "I'm sorry, sir. Guests without deposits of at least 10,000 gold are not allowed to enter." Isabella, who had never encountered anything like this before, was completely stunned. She leaned closer to Randolph and whispered, asking why he had never mentioned a deposit requirement. After changing equipment, she only had a little over 100 gold left. The doorman repeated coldly, "If you have no deposit, please do not block other guests." The moment he finished speaking, Randolph reached out and took something out. He held it up in front of the man, saying that although he had no deposit, he was willing to use this item as collateral, and that its value should be more than enough. The instant the gemstone came into view, the man's body trembled. He immediately turned respectful, insisting on personally escorting Randolph to the VIP lounge. Isabella couldn't help asking what he had handed over. Randolph simply replied that it was just a protective charm. The Fairy Queen's Tear, one of the rewards he had obtained in the sanctuary, worth at least 1 million gold on the market. That only made Isabella even more confused. She asked why he would casually hand over something so valuable. Randolph turned to her calmly. "It's fine, as long as I win. The deposit will be returned anyway." The roulette will kept spinning, the small white ball bouncing again and again. The crowd was in complete shock. Who is that guy? He won again. This is insane. Is he some kind of gambling god? His initial capital had been only 250 gold, yet it had already exceeded 1.4 million. In truth, Randolph's steady streak of victories relied entirely on his golden blessing trait. At last, the man who had politely welcomed Randolph earlier approached him, trembling from head to toe. "Sir, we will allow you to keep all of your winnings, but please, never enter the Hudson Casino again." Ever since they entered the casino, every single person who followed Randolph's bets ended up walking away empty-handed. If this continued, the casino would be completely drained sooner or later. Under the heavy gazes of the surrounding crowd, the man went on to, "Sir, please leave now." The moment those words were spoken, a cold, killing intent flashed across Isabella's face. Randolph, however, simply raised a hand and said calmly, "In that case, I'll take my leave, but before I go, I'd like to have a word with your boss." The man was about to reject the request outright and tell him to leave quietly. Randolph then added indifferently that it wasn't him who wanted to meet the boss. It was the boss who would definitely want to meet him. Meanwhile, deep inside the casino, a man was silently staring at the dazzling gemstone. He raised his hand and activated a level 8 skill, Observer's Hand. Through the skill's analysis, he quickly confirmed that the gem was unquestionably authentic. What puzzled him was the fact that the so-called Fairy Queen's Tear should only be carried by fairy knights. Finding a fairy knight alone was already an almost impossible task, and killing one would require at least 3 level 10 or higher warriors working together, barely enough, making the acquisition of such a gem nearly impossible. He had spent years desperately searching the market, yet never managed to find a single one. And now, it had come straight to his door. At that moment, a knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. "Mr. Hudson, the person who left the talisman as collateral wishes to meet you. He also claims that you're eager to meet him as well." Soon after, Randolph took a seat at the tea table across from him, with Isabella by his side. Hudson carefully observed the man before him, the one holding the Fairy Queen's Tear. After a moment of contemplation, he finally spoke. "I heard you said earlier that I would want to see you. What exactly did you mean by that?" Randolph lifted his teacup and replied calmly that there was no hidden meaning, just the literal one, that you would definitely want to see me, because you need the talisman I left behind, don't you? The moment he finished speaking, Hudson visibly trembled. "Oh, you've heard the rumors about me, searching everywhere for that rare talisman?" "That's right, Dad, I do want to purchase the Fairy Queen's Tear you possess." Seeing him admit it outright, Randolph didn't bother with pleasantries and stated that as long as the price was right, he wouldn't mind selling it. Hudson immediately named his offer point 2 million gold. "I believe that's a very generous price." Isabella was utterly stunned when she heard the number. Then Randolph spoke again, shocking her even more. 20 million gold. Hearing this, Hudson didn't reject the offer outright. Instead, he said calmly that 20 million gold was enough to buy a grand estate in the very heart of Arcana. No matter how rare the Fairy Queen's tear might be, at its core, it was still just a talisman used for weapon refinement. Did he truly believe it was worth that price? And more importantly, Hudson had no intention of paying such an exorbitant sum for a mere personal collectible. But Randolph's next sentence made Hudson's hand tremble as he held his teacup. If it were truly nothing more than a collector's item, then it wouldn't be worth that price. To you, however, the Fairy Queen's tear is far more than a mere talisman. It is also a mandatory key to entering the World Council. As Hudson fell silent, Randolph continued. The official minimum requirement to enter the World Council is level 10, but that's only the surface in reality. It's a towering wall that must be crossed through one's own strength. For someone like you, who is not suited for combat, that wall is nearly impossible to overcome. This is precisely why you need the Fairy Queen's tear, because it removes the minimum attribute requirements on equipment, allowing you to rely on high-tier gear to compensate for your lack of combat power. And for a mere casino owner to seek entry into the World Council, one of the real reasons must be to earn the approval of your fiancé Serengeti's family. Serengeti was the only daughter of the Marquis of Deterrence of the Kingdom of Balan. She was known as the Pure White Knight, commanding 500 cavalry, and had fought alongside him in the Demon Realm expedition. She was also the one who sacrificed her legs to save him from the Demon King. Back then, he believed everything Serengeti did was nothing more than scripted behavior. After all, it had all taken place inside the game world Pangenia. But after the character William died, he himself descended into that world. The fusion of game and reality made him realize something unsettling. Some so-called NPCs might actually be players. That realization brought back Serengeti's words before the expedition. If I don't make it back alive, please take this with you. At the time, the captain received the necklace from Serengeti, unsure of its meaning. Only after the system notification appeared did he learn the truth. It was a priceless necklace, containing a photo of Serengeti and her fiancé, Hudson. He had even wondered then, was this simply part of her background story? But in Serengeti's original character design, she had never had a fiancé. An NPC meant to follow a fixed behavioral loop had somehow accepted a completely new backstory, which meant there was only one explanation. Hudson, just like him, was a player assimilated by this world. Hudson's expression changed instantly. Shocked, he said he had never told anyone about this and demanded to know how Randolph had found out. Randolph, however, was already convinced. Hudson was very likely a player who had entered this world earlier than him. That was exactly why he wanted to extract as much information as possible and understand both this world and the other players within it. He raised his hand and pointed toward the sky, speaking calmly that I don't actually know that I just heard it somewhere. The stars told me. Hudson scoffed at the answer and asked if Randolph was claiming to be some kind of Holy Spirit. That's fair, Randolph replied calmly. I'm not forcing you to believe me, but I can help you obtain what you truly desire, and I don't want your money. All you have to do is accept one simple condition. Tell the stars the story of your entire life. After I hear it, I will decide whether to help you. But every part of that story must be real, because the stars favor only those who are truly honest. The words left Hudson silent for a moment. Randolph knew exactly what he might be thinking, that he could be a hidden hunter. After all, revealing personal information in this world was inherently dangerous. Hunters were high-tier NPCs specialized in killing players. They labeled players as sinners and carried out executions, and countless players had already died at their hands. Players had attempted to investigate the hunters before, but almost every effort ended in failure, forcing them to act with extreme caution. As a result, exposing one's personal information in Pangenia was almost the same as seeking death, which is why most players chose to conceal their identities. Randolph had no intention of revealing his own identity either, yet he was confident Hudson would eventually accept his proposal. Because to Hudson, Serengeti was never just a problem to be solved. Staring at the girl reflected in the pendant, he fell silent for a moment before finally deciding to tell Randolph the story of his life. This all has to begin with Serengeti, Hudson said. Everything I desire, and the one thing I'm trying to accomplish are almost entirely tied to her. Serengeti was a courageous knight. She joined a ring expedition led by the 8 heroes. The statement stunned Randolph. The 8 heroes? What are you talking about? Wasn't the ring expedition led by William? Hudson apologized briefly, then explained, William is indeed famous, but the expedition was never led by a single person. That it was carried out jointly by the 8 heroes. As everyone knows, the expedition ultimately failed because of severe internal conflict among them. That only deepened Randolph's confusion. Internal conflict? What does that even mean? He immediately asked, who exactly were the 8 heroes? Hudson answered solemnly. They were all legendary figures. One of them was Grassy, the strongest warrior, second only to William himself.